The Vorthak fleet arrived at Sol system exactly when human calculations predicted they would. 800 crystal ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their surfaces gleaming with light that seemed to come from 1,000 conquered worlds. It was the largest Vorthak force ever assembled, designed to crush any resistance in a matter of hours and add Earth to their growing empire. Commander Deho stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Coalition flagship, watching the enemy fleet move into attack position. Next to him, General Mitchell studied the tactical displays with the calm focus that Deho had learned to respect over the past months of working together. They are following standard Vorthak attack patterns, Mitchell observed without any fear in his voice. Crystal formations designed to maximize their phasing ability while maintaining overlapping fields of fire against any target. Exactly like our computer simulations predicted, Deho replied. Are your people ready for what comes next? As ready as anyone can be for fighting the impossible, Mitchell answered, then activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Earth Command. Execute Plan Thunderstorm on my direct order. What happened next was something the Vorthak had never encountered in 50 years of galactic conquest. Instead of meeting them in organized battle lines like the Coalition used to do, the human Coalition fleet scattered in all directions like leaves in a windstorm, each ship following its own unpredictable path toward the enemy formation. From the bridge of the lead Vorthak vessel, Fleet Commander Zalthek watched the approaching ships with growing confusion and concern. The enemy formation made absolutely no tactical sense according to everything he knew about warfare. Some ships were flying straight at his fleet in what looked like suicide attacks. Others were circling around the flanks in wide patterns, and several appeared to be flying away from the battle entirely. Analysis report, Zalthek demanded from his tactical officer, trying to understand what he was seeing. Unknown strategy, Fleet Commander. The enemy ships are following no recognizable attack pattern. Their formation appears completely random and chaotic. Zalthek had conquered 17 different species and fought the Coalition for decades without ever losing a single battle. He had never seen anything like this chaotic approach to space warfare. Target the lead ships. Begin standard crystal bombardment immediately. The Vorthak ships phased partially out of normal space and fired their crystal weapons, beams of focused energy that could punch through any known defense system. But when the deadly beams reached their intended targets, something impossible happened. Most of them passed harmlessly through empty space where ships had been just seconds before. What happened to our targeting? Zalthek demanded with growing anger. The enemy ships changed course at the exact moment we fired our weapons, his tactical officer reported, confusion clear in his crystal voice. All of them simultaneously, as if they knew exactly when we would attack and where we would aim. On the human flagship, Dr. Bora monitored the electromagnetic sensors that had been her brilliant idea. EMP bursts detected from all Vorthak ships, she announced calmly. They are charging their weapons for another attack volley. All ships. Evasive Pattern 7, General Mitchell ordered without any panic in his voice. Again, the human fleet shifted unpredictably, just as the Vorthak fired their weapons. And again, most of the crystal beams missed their targets completely. But this time, the human ships did not just dodge the attack. They fired back with everything they had. Thousands of tungsten rods, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic railguns, filled the space around the Vorthak fleet like a deadly metal storm. Each rod was preceded by an EMP pulse that disrupted crystal quantum fields for exactly the right amount of time. When the rods hit their targets, they tore through Vorthak armor like it was made of thin paper. 12 crystal ships exploded in brilliant flashes during the first exchange, their multi-dimensional hulls reduced to glittering debris that floated in space. It was the first time in the entire war that the Vorthak had lost ships in the opening minutes of any battle. This is impossible, Zalthek said in a whisper, watching his tactical display update with casualty reports. How are primitive weapons penetrating our advanced defenses? The projectiles are preceded by electromagnetic pulses, his science officer reported with shock in his voice. Primitive technology that disrupts our quantum field generators. Primitive technology? Zalthek's voice carried complete disbelief. No advanced species has used electromagnetic weapons for thousands of years. These appear to be humans, Fleet Commander. Their technology is several millennia behind standard galactic development levels. Zalthek felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. It was uncertainty, doubt, fear that maybe he did not understand this enemy at all. The Vorthak had conquered the galaxy by learning to understand and counter advanced technology. They had no experience fighting opponents who used primitive weapons in extremely sophisticated ways. All ships, combat formation Delta, he ordered desperately, close to minimum firing range, and overwhelmed them with concentrated crystal bombardment. But as the Vorthak fleet moved into their standard close combat formation, they discovered that humans had anticipated this tactic as well. Hidden among the asteroid belt around Sol system, massive rail guns that had been built directly into the Space Rocks themselves opened fire, catching the crystal ships in a devastating crossfire of kinetic projectiles. Captain Jin Woo, flying a hybrid fighter that combined human weapons with coalition engines, led a squadron of mixed human and alien pilots straight through the center of the Vorthak formation. Their orders were simple: cause as much chaos as possible, avoid getting destroyed, and give the larger ships time to reposition for better attacks. "Remember what we practiced," Jin Woo transmitted to his pilots as they dove toward the enemy. "Do not try to dogfight them in traditional ways. Hit them hard and run away. Keep them guessing what we will do next." The small ships darted between the massive crystal vessels like angry insects, firing EMP bursts followed by armor-piercing rounds. Each individual attack only caused minor damage, but the combined effect was devastating to Vorthak confidence and morale. For the first time in their species' history, they were fighting an enemy that refused to stand still and die properly, according to established military doctrine. As the battle continued for hours instead of minutes, something even more remarkable began happening throughout the galaxy. Coalition refugees who had been secretly monitoring the battle started transmitting the tactical data to hidden bases on dozens of worlds. Within hours, every surviving ship in the galaxy knew about EMP, weapons, and kinetic bombardment techniques, so revolution was spreading faster than anyone had imagined possible. On worlds that the Vorthak had already conquered, underground resistance movements suddenly had weapons that could actually hurt crystal technology. On refugee ships hiding in the outer systems, engineers began building railguns using spare parts and desperate hope. Most importantly, species that had completely given up hope began to believe that victory might actually be possible. The Battle of Sol system lasted 18 hours, longer than any Vorthak engagement in their recorded military history. When it finally ended, the Crystal Fleet was retreating for the first time in 50 years of conquest. They had lost over 200 ships to an enemy they barely understood, and they had no idea how to fight effectively against such chaotic tactics. Fleet Commander Zalthek sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed his once proud fleet limping toward hyperspace. Around him, his officers worked frantically to analyze what had gone so terribly wrong with their perfect battle. "Plans, final casualty report," he ordered with defeat in his voice. 217 vessels destroyed or severely damaged, his tactical officer reported. The enemy used at least 40 different weapon systems, most of which we had never encountered before in any previous battle. They fought like they were creating new tactics during the battle itself, his science officer added with confusion. Every time we learned to counter one approach, they immediately switched to something completely different. Zalthek had spent his entire career studying military tactics and strategic analysis. He understood warfare as a precise science, with predictable patterns and logical responses to every situation. These humans fought like warfare was an art form, creating something new and beautiful and terrifying with every single engagement. "What are your orders, Fleet Commander?" his tactical officer asked quietly. Zalthek stared at the retreating human ships, still harassing his fleet with long-range kinetic strikes that his shields could not stop. For 50 years, the Vorthak had advanced through the galaxy, because they could predict and counter any resistance they encountered. Now they faced an enemy that could not be predicted because it changed and adapted constantly. "Signal High Command immediately," he ordered with the weight of failure on his shoulders. "Inform them that we have encountered something completely unprecedented, a species that becomes more dangerous the longer we fight against it." On Earth, the celebrations lasted for days. Humanity had faced the most powerful fleet in the galaxy and achieved victory. But Commander Deho stood in the secure communications room, staring at a message that challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare. Jinwoo's report from Earth included detailed technical plans, battle strategies, and something that shocked
Him more than anything else, a formal request.
From the human government for a military alliance against the Vorthak Empire. They want to share their technology with us, Deho said to the assembled council of coalition survivors. In exchange, they want our help upgrading their manufacturing systems and training their pilots for space combat. This goes against every protocol we have, argued Councillor Heejin, the coalition's former chief diplomat. We are talking about giving advanced technology to a species that just learned how to leave their own planet. The protocols were written for a galaxy where the coalition still existed, Captain Jinwoo replied with conviction. That galaxy is gone forever. In this galaxy, we hide in underground bunkers while the Vorthak harvest entire worlds. Maybe it is time to try something completely different. Dr. Bora activated the main display screen, showing the analysis she had completed of human weapons technology. I have been studying their approach for 2 weeks straight. It goes against everything we know about proper warfare, and that might be exactly what we need right now. The screen showed side-by-side comparisons of coalition and human weapon systems. Coalition plasma cannons were elegant, powerful, and took 3 years to build just 1 unit. Human railguns were crude, simple, and could be built in 3 days using materials found on any industrial world. Look at the manufacturing requirements, Dr. Bora continued with growing excitement. To build 1 coalition starfighter, we need rare elements from 6 different star systems, trained technicians with decades of experience, and fabrication facilities that take 20 years to construct. To build 1 human fighter, they need basic steel, copper wire, and someone who can read an instruction manual. Cheap weapons are still useless if they cannot hurt the enemy, Councillor Heejin pointed out stubbornly. That is exactly what I thought too, Jinwoo admitted. Then I saw their actual test results. Show them the footage, Dr. Bora. The screen changed to show grainy video from Earth's weapons testing facilities. A small target made from real Vorthak crystal samples hung in empty space, surrounded by the quantum fields that made it nearly indestructible. Then a simple tungsten rod, accelerated by magnetic rails, smashed through the target like it was made of fragile glass. The secret is not the projectile itself, Dr. Bora explained carefully. It is the EMP pulse that fires exactly 1 second before impact. The electromagnetic burst disrupts the quantum field for exactly 0.3 of a second, which is just long enough for kinetic weapons to cause massive structural damage. A 50-credit EMP device defeats 1,000,000-credit Vorthak shielding technology, Jinwoo added with amazement still in his voice. It is so brilliantly simple that we never thought to try it. Deho studied the technical data for several long minutes, his mind working through all the implications. The coalition had always tried to match Vorthak advanced technology with even more advanced technology. Humans were suggesting they fight advanced technology with primitive technology used in extremely smart ways. What about their pilots? He asked with concern.
Can they actually fly and fight in real space combat situations?
That is the strangest part of all, Jinwoo replied, shaking his head in wonder. I spent a full week training with their top pilots, and they learn new things faster than anyone I have ever seen. They do not just follow standard battle tactics like we do. They make up completely new tactics while they are actually fighting. Engineer Taewon, who had been quietly studying the human technical specifications, finally spoke up. Commander, I think we should definitely try working with them. Not because their technology is better than ours, but because their way of thinking is better. They solve problems that we did not even know were problems. Explain that more clearly, Deho ordered. Taewon pulled up another display showing traditional coalition fleet formations. Look at how we used to fight our battles. Every ship had a specific role to play. Every formation had a specific purpose. Every tactic followed established military doctrine. It was elegant, efficient, and perfectly organized, and completely predictable to anyone watching. Dr. Bora added with understanding. The Vorthak learned to counter our tactics easily because we always fought exactly the same way. Humans fight differently every single time. The screen changed to show human battle simulations. Instead of neat, organized formations, human ships seemed to fly in random patterns that made no sense. Instead of coordinated group attacks, each ship appeared to be following its own independent battle plan. It looks like pure chaos, Councillor Hyojin observed with disapproval. It is chaos, Taewon agreed with a smile, but it is controlled chaos with a purpose. Each human pilot is trained to adapt their fighting style based on what the enemy does. They do not follow predetermined formations. They create brand new formations based on whatever is happening in the battle at that exact moment. The Vorthak will not be able to predict their movements, Jinwoo explained, because the humans themselves do not know what they are going to do until they actually do it. Commander Daeho made his decision. Dr. Bora, I want you to take a team of our best engineers to Earth immediately. Work with the humans to combine our technologies in new ways. Tae-1, start analyzing their manufacturing processes. If we can build weapons that quickly, we can outfit every refugee ship in this entire sector. Commander, Counselor Hai-Jin said with urgent concern, you are talking about violating centuries of non-interference protocols. I am talking about survival, Daeho replied firmly. The Vorthak will reach Earth in 10 months. If the humans can actually hurt Vorthak ships, we need to give them every advantage we possibly can. Over the next 6 months, Sanctuary Prime became the center of the strangest military alliance in galactic history. Human engineers worked side by side with coalition scientists, creating hybrid technologies that neither species could have developed working alone. The results amazed everyone involved in the project. Coalition energy shields combined with human redundancy systems created defensive barriers that could absorb incredible damage and keep functioning perfectly. Human kinetic weapons upgraded with coalition targeting systems became amazingly accurate, while remaining cheap and easy to build. Most importantly, coalition manufacturing techniques combined with human design philosophy created weapons that could be modified and improved in hours instead of years. The first joint training missions were complete disasters. Coalition pilots tried to fly in perfect formation, while human pilots improvised new tactics on the spot, leading to dangerous collisions and total confusion. But gradually, something completely new began to emerge. It was a fighting style that combined coalition discipline with human creativity in ways nobody had ever imagined. They are teaching each other, Dr. Bora reported to Daeho after observing a particularly successful training exercise. Coalition pilots are learning to think independently and make quick decisions, and human pilots are learning to coordinate their creative chaos with others. The result is something the galaxy has never seen before. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was training human pilots for their first real space battles against an enemy they had never actually faced. What he discovered changed his understanding of what courage really meant. They are not fearless, he explained to Daeho during one of their evening briefings. They are absolutely terrified, just like any rational person would be. But they have decided that being afraid is not a good enough reason to quit fighting. They know they are going to face ships that are faster, stronger, and more technologically advanced than anything they have ever built, and they are going to fight those ships anyway. That is not courage, Counselor Hai-Jin said with confusion. That sounds more like insanity. Maybe it is insanity, Jinwoo replied thoughtfully. But it is the kind of insanity that makes the Vorthak nervous for the first time in 50 years. For the first time since this war began, the enemy does not know what to expect from us. As the Vorthak fleet approached Sol System right on schedule, the combined human coalition force prepared for a battle unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. They had 300 hybrid ships that could be repaired using spare parts from any industrial world. They had weapons that cost almost nothing to build, but could destroy the most advanced crystal technology in existence. Most importantly, they had pilots who absolutely refused to accept defeat as an option, no matter how impossible the odds looked. Are we ready for this? General Mitchell asked during the final strategy meeting before the battle. Daeho looked around the command center, where humans and aliens worked together preparing to fight an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. 6 months ago, this alliance would have been completely impossible. Now it was their only hope for survival. No, he replied with complete honesty, but we are going to fight anyway. It was the most human answer he could have given, and somehow that made him feel confident about their chances of winning. When Jinwoo's ship was detected entering Earth's atmosphere, the human response was fast and overwhelming. 60 fighter aircraft surrounded his small vessel before he could even send a greeting message, and every weapon system on the planet seemed to be pointing directly at him. Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately or you will be destroyed, came a transmission in perfect galactic standard, which surprised Jinwoo greatly since humans were supposed to have never met aliens before. My name is Captain Jinwoo of the Galactic Defense Coalition, he replied, hoping these humans had heard of them from intercepted space broadcasts. I come seeking peaceful contact with your species. There was a long silence that made Jinwoo's heart beat faster. Then the reply came. Galactic Defense Coalition was destroyed at the Battle of Seven Suns 3 years ago. Prove that you are who you claim to be. Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. These humans knew specific details about Coalition battles that even most Coalition survivors did not know. How long had they been watching and listening to the war? After several tense hours of questions and identity checks, Jinwoo and Dr. Bora found themselves inside what humans called the Pentagon. The building was primitive compared to galactic standards, made of simple concrete and steel instead of energy fields and smart materials, but it felt more secure than any Coalition facility Jinwoo had ever visited. The human commander introduced himself as General Mitchell. He was shorter than most galactic species, with gray hair and tired eyes that still burned with determination. We know exactly why you are here, he said without waiting for Jinwoo to explain his mission. You want to understand how a primitive species plans to fight crystal ships that can phase through solid matter. The thought had occurred to us, Dr. Bora replied carefully, still not sure how much these humans really knew. General Mitchell led them to a huge room filled with screens showing detailed data about Vorthak fleet movements, ship designs, and battle tactics. Jinwoo recognized intelligence information that had taken the Coalition many decades to gather through dangerous spy missions. We have been watching your war since the very beginning, Mitchell explained calmly. Our deep space telescopes are not as advanced as yours, but we are very good at seeing patterns in data. We know that Vorthak ships phase through energy-based defenses, but they have to become solid when they fire their weapons. That is correct, Jinwoo confirmed with surprise. But the time window when they are solid lasts less than 1 second. Nobody has ever been fast enough to hit them during that brief moment. Nobody has ever tried our approach before, Mitchell replied, pressing a button on his control panel. The screens changed to show human weapon systems that looked completely different from standard galactic technology. Our weapons do not use energy at all. They use kinetic force, which means we throw things very, very hard. Dr. Bora studied the displays with growing confusion. These are primitive projectile weapons. Even if you could somehow hit a Vorthak ship during its solid phase, the damage would be almost nothing. Unless you throw exactly the right things at exactly the right speed, said a new voice from behind them. A young human woman entered the room, wearing a uniform covered with mathematical equations and chemical stains. I am Dr. Chen, head of our weapons research program. Jinwoo noticed that Dr. Chen's uniform had burn marks on it, and her hands were stained with unknown chemicals. These humans were clearly doing hands-on experimental work, not just computer simulations like most advanced species. Show them Project Sledgehammer, General Mitchell ordered with obvious pride. Dr. Chen led them to a launch facility where Jinwoo saw the strangest weapon he had ever encountered in his military career. It looked like a massive tube aimed at the sky, but instead of energy conduits and power systems, it had mechanical components that reminded him of ancient siege engines from primitive worlds. Magnetic railgun system, accelerating tungsten rods to 12% of light speed, Dr. Chen explained with enthusiasm. When Vorthak ships become solid to fire their crystal weapons, these rods will be waiting for them at exactly the right location. Pure kinetic energy with no exotic particles for them to phase through. Interesting in theory, Dr. Bora said diplomatically, but how do you aim at targets moving faster than your sensors can possibly track? We do not aim at where they are right now, Dr. Chen replied with a grin that Jinwoo was starting to recognize. It was the expression humans got when they were about to explain something that would sound completely crazy to any other species. We aim at where they absolutely have to be. Vorthak ships always fire from the same optimal range because their crystal weapons have limited effectiveness beyond that specific distance. So we fill that entire area of space with tungsten rods and wait for them to fly directly into our trap. Jinwoo felt his mind struggling to process this completely alien approach to space warfare. Every galactic species tried to build better shields and more accurate weapons to fight the Vorthak. Humans were building simpler weapons but using them in ways that nobody had ever considered before. Your entire plan is to fill empty space with projectiles and hope the enemy runs into them, he asked with disbelief. Not hope at all, General Mitchell corrected firmly. Mathematics. We have calculated the exact probability of successful hits based on Vorthak fleet formations and their standard firing patterns. Against a typical fleet of 100 Vorthak ships, we expect to destroy or severely damage 67 vessels in the opening exchange. And the other 33 ships will destroy your entire planet. Dr. Bora pointed out with concern. Maybe they will. Dr. Chen admitted without any fear in her voice. But here is what you galactic species never understood about humans. We do not just have one plan. We have backup plans for our backup plans, and backup plans for those backup plans too. She led them deeper into the facility, where Jin Wu saw something that made his artificial arm hurt with phantom pain. Humans were carefully dissecting captured Vorthak technology, not with advanced scanners and computer models, but with simple tools and direct hands-on examination. How did you possibly get Vorthak crystal samples? Jin Wu asked in complete shock. Crashed scout ship in our outer system 2 months ago. Dr. Chen replied like it was no big deal. The pilot was probably doing reconnaissance work before the main invasion fleet arrives. We managed to recover some debris before the ship's self-destruct system activated. What Jin Wu saw next completely changed his understanding of human capabilities. While the Coalition had spent many years trying to understand Vorthak crystal technology, using the most advanced quantum analysis equipment available, humans had figured out the basic structure using primitive chemical tests and simple physical examination. The crystals exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, Dr. Chen explained, holding up a small sample that seemed to shift between solid and transparent states. But they absolutely need a quantum field generator to maintain dimensional stability. Disrupt that field and the crystal becomes regular matter that can be damaged through normal means. That is completely impossible, Dr. Bora said, staring at the sample. We have been trying to find a way to disrupt Vorthak quantum fields for decades without any success. You were thinking too complicated, Dr. Chen replied with another grin. Sometimes the best way to stop advanced technology is with the simplest possible solutions. Watch this demonstration. She picked up what looked like a primitive electromagnetic pulse device and activated it near the crystal sample. The crystal immediately became completely solid and started glowing with intense heat. Basic EMP burst, Dr. Chen explained proudly. Costs about 50 credits to build compared to your million-credit quantum disruptor systems. The Vorthak never protected their technology against electromagnetic pulses because no advanced species has used electromagnetic weapons for thousands of years. Jin Wu sat down heavily in the nearest chair, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. You are telling me that humans have found the solution to defeating Vorthak technology, using weapons that the entire galaxy abandoned as obsolete millennia ago. Not just one solution, General Mitchell said with satisfaction. Multiple solutions. We have kinetic kill vehicles, electromagnetic pulse bombs, nuclear-pumped laser systems, and about 40 other weapon types that do not rely on the exotic physics that the Vorthak know how to counter. But your technology is so incredibly primitive, Dr. Bora protested, still trying to understand. How can primitive weapons possibly defeat the most advanced ships in the galaxy? Dr. Chen and General Mitchell exchanged a look that Jin Wu was beginning to recognize. It was the expression humans got when they were about to explain something that would sound insane to any other intelligent species. Because primitive does not mean ineffective, Dr. Chen said patiently. It means simple, reliable, and easy to build very quickly. While you galactic species spent centuries perfecting a few advanced technologies, we learned to use hundreds of simple technologies in creative new ways. The Vorthak spent 50 years learning to counter coalition energy weapons and quantum shield systems, General Mitchell added, but they never learned to counter a simple chunk of metal moving at incredible. Dr. Bora was working late in her small laboratory when her computer made a sound she had never heard before. For 10 long years, she had been listening to the same signals from across the galaxy. Most of the time, it was just static from dead worlds, emergency messages from refugee ships, and the strange crystal music that Vorthak vessels made when they moved through space. This signal was completely different. It was weak, coming from a part of the galaxy that most star charts marked as empty space. But what made Bora sit up straight in her chair was not where the signal came from, but what kind of signal it was. Instead of the quantum transmissions that every civilized species used for communication, this was old-fashioned electromagnetic radiation. It was the kind of primitive signal that young civilizations used when they first discovered radio technology. Tae-1, you need to see this, she called to her assistant. Taewon was the best engineer they had left, one of the few people who could take apart Vorthak technology without it exploding in his face. He was also the only person who stayed up as late as Bo-Ra did, mostly because he had terrible nightmares about crystal ships chasing him through space. "What did you find?" Taewon asked, walking over to Bo-Ra's workstation. The screen showed a wave pattern that looked almost like music, but with strange gaps and repeating sections that did not make sense. "A signal from an unknown star system," Bo-Ra replied, adjusting the controls to clean up the background noise. "Look at how fast the complexity is growing." Taewon studied the patterns for several minutes, and his eyes grew wider with each passing second. This should not be possible. 6 months ago, this signal was just simple beeps and clicks. Now it looks like they are transmitting advanced mathematical formulas. The speed of advancement is faster than any species we have ever recorded. "That is not the strangest part," Bo-Ra said, pulling up another screen filled with data. "I have been tracking signals from this system for almost 2 years now. They call their home Sol system, and they are not just sending random messages into space. They are talking to each other about us." "About us? What do you mean?" "About the war. They know about the Vorthak somehow. Listen to this." Bo-Ra played a translated signal that her computer had decoded from the primitive transmissions. The voice sounded strange and alien, but the words were clear enough. "Long-range telescopes confirm massive fleet movements in Sector 7. Energy signatures match the crystal formations reported by coalition refugees. Estimated arrival time at our location, 18 months. Taewon stared at the screen like he could not believe what he was hearing. "They know the Vorthak are coming for them. How is that even possible? They have been watching the war for decades," Bo-Ra said quietly. "Using primitive telescopes and radio dishes, but somehow they figured out what was happening all across the galaxy. And instead of running away to hide somewhere else." She played another signal, this one with more urgency in the strange voice. "Defense command to all units. Project Iron Shield is now fully active. We know we cannot win against them, but we are going to make them pay dearly for every inch of our space." "They are preparing to fight," Taewon whispered in amazement. "A primitive species that has never left their own star system is getting ready to fight the most powerful force in the galaxy." Bo-Ra nodded slowly. "I need to report this to Commander Daeho right away." 1 hour later, Daeho sat in the main briefing room with Bo-Ra, Taewon, Captain Jin Woo, and Intelligence Officer Hee Jin. On the large screen, star charts showed the location of Sol system, a small group of planets around a yellow star that nobody had ever bothered to visit because it was so far from any important trade routes. "You are telling me there is a species out there that knows about the Vorthak and actually wants to fight them?" Daeho asked, still trying to process this impossible information. "Yes, Commander," Bo-Ra replied, "but that is not even the strangest part. Their technology is incredibly primitive compared to galactic standards. They are still using chemical rockets to travel between the planets in their own system. Their weapons appear to be based on nuclear fission and simple projectiles. By all logical reasoning, they should not be able to scratch the paint on a Vorthak scout ship. Then why are they not running away like every other species does?" Jin Woo asked with confusion in his voice. "Even we tried to negotiate with the Vorthak for the first 10 years of the war." Hee Jin, who had been studying the translated transmissions on her tablet, looked up with a puzzled expression. "I think they simply do not understand what running away means. Look at their historical records that we managed to intercept. They have never abandoned their home planet, not once in their entire recorded history. Every time they faced complete destruction, they found some way to fight back and survive. It is like the concept of giving up does not exist in their thinking." "That is not courage," Jinwoo said with a bitter laugh. "That is just suicide with extra steps. The Vorthak will destroy them in a matter of hours." "Maybe they will," Daeho said slowly, walking over to study the star chart more carefully. "Or maybe they know something that we do not. Dr. Bo-Ra, how much time do we have before the Vorthak reach this Sol system?" 14 months based on current fleet movements and their usual conquest patterns." Daeho stood quietly for several minutes, thinking about the position of Sol system on the map. It was far from any major civilization centers, in a region that most species considered completely worthless. But it was also positioned in a way that could serve as an early warning system for Vorthak movements toward the remaining refugee worlds. "I want a reconnaissance mission," he decided finally. One small ship, minimal crew, just to observe and report back to us. If these humans are really planning to fight the Vorthak Empire, we need to know exactly what they think they can accomplish. Commander, Heejin said carefully, the Coalition's non-interference protocols strictly forbid any contact with civilizations that have not yet developed space travel. The Coalition is dead, Daeho replied with harsh finality. And if the Vorthak reach Sol System, this human species will be dead too. At least this way we might learn something useful before that happens. Jinwoo raised his hand like a volunteer. I will take the mission. My ship is small enough to avoid Vorthak patrol fleets, and if these humans are as primitive as you say, they will never detect my approach. Take Dr. Bora with you, Daeho ordered. I want detailed scans of their technology and biology. If they have some kind of natural resistance to Vorthak weapons, we absolutely need to know about it. 3 weeks later, Jinwoo's scout ship dropped out of hyperspace at the very edge of Sol System. What they saw through their sensors surprised them both completely. The third planet from the star was blue and green, covered with cities that glowed like precious jewels in the darkness of space. But it was the area around the planet that made Jinwoo whistle in pure amazement. Look at all those ships, he said, pointing at the scanner display. Hundreds of primitive spacecraft moved in organized patterns around the planet and its single moon, all of them broadcasting the same message in dozens of different languages. Earth Defense Force standing ready for battle. They turned their entire world into a military fortress, Dr. Bora said with wonder in her voice. Every ship they have, every weapon they can build, all of it pointed toward the sky waiting for the Vorthak to arrive. Run a full scan of their vessels, Jinwoo ordered. I want to know what they think they can possibly do against crystal technology. The scans revealed something that made both officers shake their heads in disbelief. The human ships were incredibly crude, held together with metal bolts and powered by controlled chemical explosions. Their weapons were simple tubes that threw chunks of metal using explosive reactions. Compared to galactic technology, they might as well have been throwing rocks with wooden slingshots, but there were thousands of them, and more being built every single day. The humans were not trying to build a few perfect ships like the Coalition used to do. They were building as many simple ships as they could possibly manage, as fast as their factories could work. It is like they think quantity can somehow beat quality, Jinwoo observed. Maybe it can, Dr. Bora replied thoughtfully, studying the energy readings from the planet's surface. Look at their manufacturing capability. They are building new ships faster than we ever could, even during our peak years, and their designs keep changing constantly. She was absolutely right. Every human ship looked different from the others, like they were experimenting with completely new ideas on every single construction project. Some were covered in thick armor plating, others were built for maximum speed. Some carried huge guns, others carried swarms of smaller weapons. They are trying everything at once, Bora continued with growing excitement. Instead of perfecting one design like normal species always do, they are testing hundreds of different approaches simultaneously. It looks like chaos, but if one approach actually works against the Vorthak, they can build 1,000 more ships just like it in a matter of months instead of years. Jinwoo finished the thought. These humans are not just preparing to fight the Vorthak Empire, they are preparing to outproduce them in a war of numbers. Commander Daeho stood among the wreckage of what used to be the most powerful space station in the galaxy. Twisted metal and broken glass floated around him as he looked out at the empty space where thousands of ships once gathered. The Galactic Defense Coalition was dead, and he was one of the few survivors who remembered what they used to be. 300 years ago, when Daeho was just a young officer, the Coalition protected more than 200 worlds. They had the strongest ships, the best weapons, and the smartest commanders in known space. Every species in the galaxy felt safe knowing the Coalition was watching over them. But that was before the Vorthak arrived. The Vorthak were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They looked like living crystals that could change shape and walk through solid walls. Their ships were made of the same crystal material, and their weapons could reach through any defense and destroy targets from the inside. The Coalition fought them for 50 long years, but it was never really a fair fight. Daeho remembered the final battle at Seven Suns like it happened yesterday. He commanded a fleet of 3,000 Coalition ships, the largest force they had ever put together. They carried new quantum shields that were supposed to stop anything, and plasma cannons that could blow up entire moons. For a brief moment, he actually thought they might win. Then the Vorthak appeared with only 200 ships. Their crystal weapons went right through the quantum shields like they were made of paper. The plasma cannons that took years to build were destroyed in seconds. In 6 hours, 3,000 coalition ships became floating pieces of scrap metal. Deho escaped with only 12 ships and 600 survivors out of nearly 1 million people. Now he lived on a hidden world called Sanctuary Prime, deep in a region of space that most star maps showed as empty. Here, in underground caves and bunkers, the last members of the coalition tried to help refugees and plan for a future that seemed hopeless. Commander called Dr. Bora as she walked into his small office. She carried a tablet and looked tired like everyone else these days. I have the latest reports from the Outer Rim worlds. Deho took the tablet and read through the numbers. 15 more worlds had gone silent in the past month. The Vorthak were not just destroying planets anymore. They were taking them apart piece by piece for something they called the Great Convergence. Nobody knew what it meant, but it sounded terrible. How much time do we have left? Deho asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Our first calculation said 50 years before they controlled the entire galaxy, Dr. Bora replied, sitting down in a chair that had seen better days. But they are moving much faster now. At this speed, we have 12 years at most before everything is gone. 12 years. Deho closed his eyes and tried to imagine what the galaxy would look like when the Vorthak finished their work. All the beautiful worlds with their different cultures, all the various species with their unique art and music and stories, everything would be gone. All of it would be turned into more crystal structures for the Vorthak's mysterious plan. What changed? He asked. Why are they moving so much faster than before? We think they discovered something new, Dr. Bora said quietly. Some kind of advanced technology or energy source. Our few remaining spies report that their ships are bigger now, and they can convert entire worlds in weeks instead of months. Captain Jinwoo entered the office without knocking, which meant he had urgent news. Jinwoo was one of the few pilots who survived the disaster at Seven Suns, and he looked much older than his 40 years. His left arm was artificial, a replacement after his fighter was cut in half by a Vorthak crystal blade. Commander, we have a serious problem, Jinwoo said, his voice tight with worry. Long-range sensors picked up a Vorthak scout fleet moving toward the rim worlds. They are checking star systems that were supposed to be completely empty. The rim worlds were at the very edge of known space, where only the bravest explorers used to go looking for new discoveries. If the Vorthak were searching there, it meant they were looking for hidden refugee camps like the one on Sanctuary Prime. How long before they find us here? Deho asked the question everyone was thinking. If they keep searching at their current speed, maybe 2 years, Jinwoo replied. But if they get lucky and pick the right direction, he did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened when the Vorthak found a refugee world. The planet was stripped of all life within days. Its materials added to their growing crystal empire that now covered half the galaxy. Deho stood up and walked to the small window that showed Sanctuary Prime's gray, cloudy sky. Far below ground, 30,000 refugees from dozens of different species tried to live normal lives while hiding from the most powerful force the galaxy had ever known. Children played in artificial parks, never seeing real sunlight. Adults worked on projects that did not really matter, knowing their real job was just to stay hidden until the Vorthak eventually found them. What about our weapons research? Deho asked Dr. Bora. Any progress on finding something that can actually hurt their ships? Dr. Bora shook her head sadly. We have been studying captured Vorthak technology for 10 years now. Their crystal structure is completely unlike anything found in nature. It exists in multiple dimensions at the same time, which is why our weapons pass right through it. To build something that could fight them, we would need to completely rewrite everything we know about physics. So we just wait here to die, Jinwoo said with bitter anger in his voice. Hide in holes like scared animals until they dig us up and finish the job. We survive, Deho corrected him, though the words felt empty and meaningless. We keep the memory of the coalition alive for as long as possible. We help as many people as we can, and we hope for some kind of miracle. But privately, Commander Deho wondered if miracles even existed anymore. The coalition had been the miracle that protected the galaxy for 3 centuries. They had been proof that different species could work together, that good people could win against evil ones, that technology could be used to help others instead of hurting them. The Vorthak had destroyed all of that in just 50 years of war. They showed everyone that sometimes the universe was simply cruel, that sometimes the bad guys won no matter how hard the good guys fought or how much they believed in doing the right thing. That night, Daeho could not sleep. He walked through the underground tunnels of Sanctuary Prime, past the sleeping areas where families from 100 different worlds dreamed of homes they would never see again. In the memorial hall, the walls showed the names of every coalition ship and crew member lost in the war. The list was so incredibly long it would take hours just to read every single name. At the end of the hall was a metal sign with the coalition's old motto, "United we stand, divided we fall." Someone had crossed out those words with black paint and written below them in shaky letters, "We fell anyway." Daeho stared at those harsh words for a long time. Then he took out a marker from his pocket and wrote something new underneath. "But we're still standing." It was not much hope, but it was all they had left. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, there might still be an answer waiting to be found. Somewhere, there might be a species or a technology or just a simple idea that could turn everything around. Until that day came, the last defenders of the galaxy would keep hiding in their underground shelters, keep helping whoever they could save, and keep hoping that their sacrifices meant something important. The war was lost, but somehow the story was not over yet.